Hey, it's me, your favorite neighborhood lesbian, just dropping by to let you know that today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by you, the patrons on Patreon, and anybody else supporting this podcast. If you're not a patron, you can become one for as little as $3 a month and get early access to episodes and vlogs that I drop. You can also be involved in exclusive live streams for patrons only and many other giveaways that I'm in the process of planning on doing. So if you want to become a patron, click the link in the description below and help support this podcast and the show. And to all the current patrons, thank you so much for the support. I love you all very much. I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, we're recording. All right, so
Awesome.
hello. I
Hi.
don't even know what episode this is, but I have Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
How did we meet? We met through TikTok.
Yep.
And we became friends. I don't even remember how we became friends, to be quite honest.
I don't even know how I got on your radar. I'm like, I'm thankful I did, but like, I don't
I'm
even know.
thankful you did too. You've been amazing. You've been completely amazing.
I think it was through the podcast when I
Definitely.
first started watching that, and then leaving comments, and then you started talking back.
Right. Yeah, for those of you who say that I don't answer comments back, I do.
She does.
But so now I have you on because it's I guess what is it, Adoption Awareness Month? Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
I
Okay.
think so.
And now I've interviewed somebody who was adopted, and now you have adopted. You are the
Yes.
adopter. And so I guess I just want to get your story first. Like, how did this whole thing come to be? What prompted you to adopt? And then we'll go from there. So there you go. Floor is yours.
Well, basically, I couldn't have kids of my own because I ended up having a hysterectomy in my early 20s. And I knew I was born to be a mom. Apparently that just wasn't the right path. So I ended up looking into adoption, which is incredibly expensive if you haven't seen. It's like $40,000.
It is?
And it is. And there is no guarantee that you will get the baby. Like if the mother changes her mind because I don't know what it's called, but there's like a time where they can like change, you're out that money. So
Wow.
it's very risky. So we looked into foster care, and we decided to go that route, which was foster to adopt.
Okay.
And so you have to become a certified foster parent either way. And then that involves like 6 months of a lot of training, a lot of people invading your life because you're taking in kids. So they basically have to like go all the way back, like 20 years back into your history to make sure there's nothing bad. You have to go through a lot of like CPR, first aid training, trauma training, abuse training. You learn a lot.
Wait, abuse training. What
How
is
to
that?
deal with children who come into your home who have been abused.
Oh my God. Okay. All
So
right.
sexual abuse, physically abused. For example, I had a 5-year-old who showed up at my door and his face was black and blue.
Oh my
He had a
God.
black eye and a busted lip. And he had actually come from another foster home.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you that too. Do you find that as much as like you're given that training as a foster parent, I've heard a lot about the system as a whole, like how foster homes aren't always the best. Is that true?
That is true. Some are good and some are bad. My older kids came from a home where they were hit, and that's not allowed. You're not allowed to have any kind of physical discipline whatsoever. Foster homes are basically supposed to be like a safe haven.
Right.
And some people just don't follow that.
Why? It's such a loaded question, I know, but like to me, it's like if you're going out of your way to basically volunteer your house and your resources to children, why are you then going? It's like why are you then going to be abusive and not follow the rule? I don't understand that.
I think some people just aren't prepared. I've had kids that were easy. I've had kids that were extremely difficult. I've had like the police at my house every night for months because I had a very violent child that liked to overturn tables and throw things.
What do
And I
you
think for some people, they don't expect that. They don't know how to handle that. And so they just react the wrong way.
Right, right. So when you say you go through that training, you're trained to kind of be more empathetic to a child who is overturning tables and
Right.
chairs.
To learn where that's coming from, which for most of it, it's mainly trauma because
Right.
these kids aren't removed for no reason.
Right, exactly. You don't just take a kid out of its home for no reason, right?
Yeah.
How long did you foster for?
I've been doing it for 8 years.
You're still doing it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, my question is what sets it apart? Like what sets you apart from like what sets a child apart from like a foster kid to a kid that you're like, okay, I'm gonna adopt because you've adopted, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
you've adopted one or two? You've adopted two.
One.
One, just one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what made you, was it just a connection that you had with her that you were like, okay, I'm adopting her. She's
Well, my goal from the beginning was to adopt.
right, 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 right.
I didn't want to, I don't want my kids to leave. That's heartbreaking. I think I've had 34 in 8 years.
You've had 34 kids in 8 years.
Yeah. They
Holy,
usually come in like threes or fours. And I've had babies that I've had for like over a year and had to say goodbye to them.
oh,
It's heartbreaking.
okay. The only, and this is going to be really stupid to say, but
No, don't do that. You're not stupid.
well, I mean, the only real, like, not even experience. Have you ever seen the show The Fosters?
Yes, and it is not realistic at
It's
all.
not realistic. Okay. Now, when
No, I had to stop watching that.
you did, it's not
I did.
realistic
I was like, this is
because
not realistic.
because they literally fucking adopt every single kid that come essentially in the show. Every single kid that comes into their house ends up getting
No, there
adopted.
are families that do that. When
There,
I was waiting to adopt, I had met people who had adopted every kid they had.
holy
And
shit.
I think some of them had like 5 or 6. And I'm like, well, Jesus Christ. And I couldn't get one. They kept leaving.
What?
So that does happen, but the whole relationship thing and the fosters, that would never that
Right.
would not be allowed.
Oh yeah, right. By law that can't happen, right? Like
Yeah, no. No.
now, do you see yourself being a foster parent for a long time?
I don't know. I was doing it with somebody for the first 6 years, and so for the last 2.5, I've been on my own.
Right. And that's
And
tough.
it is. It's very tough. So I don't know. I mean, I might continue as the kids get older, but I haven't really decided.
Right. Do you want to adopt any more?
Oh yeah.
You do. You want to adopt. How many more do you see yourself adopting?
I don't know. I would like to adopt my older ones, but there's been some changes made. So I don't
How
know.
old are they?
15 and 13.
15 and 13. And you want to adopt them.
I do.
And now
Um,
when you say there have been changes, what are the changes like to the law, the rules and stuff?
no. Um, my oldest, who was having some issues, has asked to go back to her birth mom.
Got it. Okay. Got it. That's got
So,
to be fucking heart wrenching.
yep. Yeah. She's been with me 5.5 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not I don't think people understand. It's not just you take a kid in, you take care of them for a while and then if they go like there especially if you have older kids, something like this could happen where they make the decision. You know, it's also hard
Yeah.
for the foster parents as well. You know, I would assume that it's hard for the kids too when you're coming in and you're going to a new foster home and you're hoping to be, I'm sure kids are hoping to be adopted because there's got to be that sense. Do you find with the kids that there's a sense of like they just want to fucking be accepted?
Generally, but for the most part, they just want to go home.
They want to go back home to their.
They want to be with their family, with their parents. So it's bittersweet. You know, it's hard. You want them to have the life here, but a lot of times it's only temporary.
Right.
I mean, there's always more coming, but you know, it's never easy when they leave. I stay in touch with probably half of the ones that I've had. They
Oh.
contact me and find me on TikTok and stuff like that. And I even have one, she's 12 now. And it's been like 4 years since I've seen her, and she's back in the system. So she like contacts me on TikTok and she's like, Mom, come get me.
Oh. They
And
call
I'm
you mom.
like, oh yeah. Yeah.
Um when you say back in the system, is it mainly like these kids are in and out of foster care? It's not something that's consistent.
Yeah. Well, for this particular one, they had already been removed 3 times before I got them. So I was actually supposed to adopt her and her 2 sisters, and they ended up going back home.
Wow. Did they want to be adopted?
They did.
They did
They
want to be.
also wanted to be with their parents. So um, I knew how that was going to work out just from the time I've been doing it, and because I knew them. So I knew it was just a matter of time before they were going to be back. And unfortunately, that's how it worked out.
Can they, when now you said they're back in the system,
Mm-hmm.
can they request to be with you again or no?
They can, they have. Their family has requested that they come back to me. The problem is you can only have a certain amount of children in your home at a time, depending
Oh,
on the amount of rooms. So you can only have like 2 kids to a room. Generally, sometimes they'll make an exception and do 3. The laws are always changing. Um, but especially with the kids I have, because they're considered, what are they considered? Challenging?
okay.
They don't want to disrupt the home.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah.
Do you have like kids that are considered like flight risks and stuff like that?
Yeah, right now, in fact.
You're dealing with one right now.
Because
Was that was
I'm
the
not gonna say her
situation?
name, but yeah, she's run since she came back. She was gone for a few hours, and the other time she was gone for 4 days.
I think I remember that was when I made a post about it too.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
That's got to be. Now she's you didn't adopt her?
No, no. I have been trying and trying because, like I said, she's been with me 5.5 years. We did what's called AP paperwork back in February, which is when they start adoption proceedings, and they're technically no longer in foster care.
Right.
Um, and then the paperwork got screwed up and I had to redo it. It got screwed up again. I had to redo it. It got screwed up again. I had to redo it. It got screwed up again.
Oh my God.
And I just found out it got screwed up again. So basically, we have to keep going back and redoing this paperwork and then just put everything on hold. And then COVID happened.
Okay.
And that set us back as well. So one of the most hard things for them is I adopted Anna, but she came after them. And
Okay.
so that wasn't fair to them, how
Oh,
that worked out.
do they have like a little bit of like anger about it?
They did, yeah. It made it very hard,
Because
especially the day she was adopted. Like I was happy and excited, but I had to take their feelings into consideration. So I couldn't like show it all that much, you know?
right, right.
So that made it hard.
And that's just because of the process, right? Like that's just really what it is. But as kids, they don't understand, obviously.
it had more to do with the tribes. Okay, so Anna is actually their niece. She is their oldest sister's daughter.
Oh shit, the one that you adopted.
Yes, is their oldest sister's daughter. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that's how I got her, because her mom wanted her with her siblings.
Okay.
So the hospital called and told me about Anna, and she was born addicted to meth and heroin. So
Meth
that's,
and heroin?
yeah. So I went and saw her in the hospital, but I had to visit her for a few days before I could actually bring her home. And at the time, I actually had 3 other kids. I had the 2 I have now and their brother. But he did not do well with me having to focus on a baby.
Got it.
Because my time was now divided. Even though we sat them down and said, okay, look, I got a call from your sister. She wants me to take the baby. Are you guys okay with this? And they were totally on board with it. But a new baby,
Right.
takes time. And with Anna, she would choke in her sleep. She would have acid reflux.
Okay.
Which is fairly common in that situation. And it was hard because she didn't make a sound when it happened. You would just basically look over and she would be in distress. And all you had to do was sit her up and it would clear her. But yeah, it was pretty scary. I didn't sleep much.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, wait, how old is she now?
4.
Oh, she's 4. So your adopted daughter you've had basically since birth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you as a foster mom don't look at the kids any differently, like just because by law she's your adopted daughter doesn't make your love for the other children any less.
No. Any kid that walks through that door is mine.
Right.
As soon as they come through that door, whether they're here for a few hours or a few months, they're mine.
Right. I have to say, it takes a special kind of person to do that. Like I love children and children love me, but I know for a fact, as much as I love children, I mean, I guess with the proper training and stuff like that, but it would be very hard to deal with kids that that have, like violence issues. Like is it hard for you sometimes when a kid is turning over your kitchen table, to kind of have that empathy? Or do you think that the training that you're given is like it, or do you have that
There's definitely days where you don't.
right where you want to punch a kid in the head?
Yeah, what is that movie, Instant Family or something like that?
Yes.
That is my freaking life. And there's a part in that movie where the kid comes down the stairs and she just broke something and he steps on it and she's like, oh, did that hurt? That's too bad. And I crack up every time because I've been there.
Right.
Or I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
So you would say that movie's more realistic than
Yes.
okay.
Yes, especially things moved really quick, I think, in my opinion, in the court system. But as far as things that go wrong and the heartbreak of all of that, absolutely.
It's gotta take an emotional toll on everybody involved.
It does. It absolutely does. And I use TikTok as my escape,
Right.
and you guys. So
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess sometimes like we don't think about, like that part of especially me as a gay female, right? Like adoption is always on the table. If I meet a woman and she's my girlfriend and we get married and she says, I don't want to physically give birth to a child, but I want a child and I want to adopt. Like I've never considered the other side of it. I feel like the other side of it is foster care and being a foster parent and that is so different, I think, than just it's almost like you pick out a baby and you're like, this is the baby. And like when I don't know what the terminology, what you would call it, like the difference between being a foster parent to adopt and going through an adoption agency. Is there like different terminology?
I don't know if I would say terminology, but more than likely, if you're going from an agency, you're going to get a healthy baby.
Right. Right.
You're going to get a baby that hasn't come from an abusive home, or because even babies who aren't born drug addicted, if they're coming from an abusive home where there's fighting and hitting and stuff like that, that is going to impact the baby
Right.
after it is born, and people don't realize that. um, Anna had something where she had nightmares. She had something called sensory nightmares, where they tell you that when children are born, they relive their birth. Well, for what happened to Anna is, I guess as the therapist put it, she relived it and felt it. So
God.
when she was born, because she was born drug addicted, she was automatically stuck with IVs and needles and everything else. So she would wake up screaming
In
because
pain.
she was reliving that.
Oh, that's got
And
that's
my
another.
dumbass thought she was like missing her mom or something. Like I figured
Oh,
she was missing that connection to her birth mom. I had no idea what she was going through.
do you feel that sense of like, um, do you at times feel like insecure? Like almost inadequate, like I'm not the birth mother. Is that like a psychological
Yeah,
thing for you?
absolutely. Especially because of the fact that they're belong to a tribe. You know, there's a lot that goes into that. And so I'm constantly trying to keep them connected to that culture. And that's not always easy. Some
Yeah,
people are accepting of it, other people are not.
accepting of the fact, like, because you're saying like you are a white female, right? That's your race,
Yeah.
and the kids that you're fostering are they black or Hispanic? They're
Native
Spanish?
American.
Native American. Okay, so like there's different cultural backgrounds, and that's
Yeah.
obviously a whole, like, that's like cognitive dissonance, I'm sure. Like there's probably a little bit of a, what am I trying to say, like a bump in the road, I guess, right? Like another.
That was a huge bump in the road.
It
You
is.
you you got to know your Native American history on that one. I had to do a lot of research to find out, because after Anna was with me, like she was probably with me about 3 days before I got a call from someone from the tribe saying we're going to come out to see her to make sure you're not stealing her from her tribe.
Wow.
And I was like, what the, like what?
Right.
Like why
Right.
would you say that?
Right.
Um, so I had to do my history and learn about all of that, and it made a lot of sense. Um, so back in the 1800s, they wanted to assimilate the Native Americans, and they had the U.S. government. They opened up these boarding schools, and this jerk named Pratt, he had a motto for the schools, which was "Kill the Indian and the man, but save the man." So they had armed police walk onto reservations and take people's children, and they weren't allowed to say no. If they tried to hide their children, then they lost food, they were arrested.
What?
They had no, I'm telling you, I encourage everybody to take a Native American history, because what they teach us in school at a young age is not what happened.
we
Um,
we so basically a white dude came in and was like to steal the Native American
the
kids.
US government.
The US government did this.
And then they had a Bureau of Indian Affairs, and that was basically meant to decrease the power of the Native tribes. So they took these kids, they forced them into these boarding schools.
Mm.
They changed their names. They give them white names. Basically, I hate saying that. I feel like I'm saying something racist, but that's honestly what it
they
is.
they whitewashed the names.
Exactly. New names, new clothes, cut their hair. They weren't allowed to speak their language, see their parents. If they did, they were severely punished. They were beaten. They put lye in their mouth. There were kids that died in these schools.
They put lye in kids'
Yes,
mouths. This is what
yes,
our government did.
yes,
How did this not?
exactly. This went on for 25 years, 100 schools. Some were on the reservations, but most of them were like 100 miles away from the reservations.
And you said this was in the 1800s?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And once the schools got closed down, so the reason they come at me is because I don't know the exact time frame, but at one point the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they brought social workers onto the reservations, and they started bullying the parents trying to take the kids again, basically saying that they were neglecting them because you got kids running around barefoot, without a shirt on or whatever, playing outside, just being kids.
Right.
But they looked at it as that's not okay.
Okay.
Not civilized, basically. So they would come in and they'd be like, okay, well, you have 4 kids, so you're going to give me 1 or I'm going to take all of them. And then they would make these reports saying that these kids were being neglected, that they were being mistreated. And eventually it ended up going to court because there was enough complaints for a judge to hear it out. And one woman was talking about how she was pregnant. And as soon as she was pregnant, they started showing up at her house and they started bullying her, saying, well, you already have 5 kids, so you're going to give us this one or we're going to take all of them.
Now, this is the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or?
Yep.
And this, okay, so now let me get this straight. The Bureau of Indian Affairs is obviously Native Americans, right? Or is it white people?
I believe so.
It's white people.
It was part of the U.S. government.
So the Bureau of Indian Affairs, this is how because when I think of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, it makes me, at face value, it makes me think that they're for the Native Americans, but they're not.
Exactly. No.
So they're out here trying to bully Native Americans into submission to giving their kids away. Still, right. Still present day, this is happening.
And they were taking these kids and they were putting them in white homes. And the parents were like writing letters and they're like trying to contact their kids and they're not answering them. And then the kids are asking about their parents and they're like, no, they're happy that you're in a good home now, that you're okay. And
so let me get this straight. Let me get this completely on point to what you're saying. Today, 2020, there is an organization, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, that is run by the government.
Not anymore, no.
No, not anymore. Run by the
government.
Not
anymore. This is just what happened back
in the 1800s.
I can't give you the exact date. It was past that, but
okay.
No. So when they went to court, that is when they enacted ICWA, which was basically, yeah. So now they have the Indian Child Welfare Act.
Got it.
And that is ICWA. And they are the ones who contacted me. They are the ones who make sure that when children are brought into white foster homes, that their culture is being kept intact, that they're not being whitewashed, basically, that they are being
taught their culture.
And exactly. And so, but the whole reason for that spiel was to explain why I was being treated the way I was.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we did get off on a tangent, but I'm very I have many questions about so now you're being treated a certain way because you're being looked at as a white woman who's trying to whitewash Native American children, or could potentially have gaslighted the kids into your home. Is that correct?
Not exactly. It's just what they want to make sure doesn't happen.
Right. They want to make sure that you're not doing that.
And especially with the newborns. Like, none of that happened when I had my older ones. I didn't have the tribe on me. I didn't have anyone calling me. It wasn't until I got Anna. And I think that was because a lot of the babies were the ones that were taken from the families.
Is this still happening though?
No.
Okay. So it's not.
I sure as hell hope not. Right.
But that's what I'm thinking. Like, that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, is this shit still going on, that it needs to be looked into like this? Like, they got to be looking at, or is it just they have this historical now bias because it happened in the past, and so now they see you and like, you know what I mean? Kind of almost like a resentment toward the white person. Not to get into race.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely how it felt at times.
Right.
You know, I would.
What were you gonna say?
Go ahead.
No, you go.
You know, there were definitely times where I'd have to take, like I had to take my oldest to a summit, and they were talking about, you know, white people and how bad they are and everything. And I'm literally sitting in this room listening to this, like feeling very uncomfortable.
Right.
Is it like I don't.
Do you get mixed feelings about that where you're like, I understand where it comes from, but at the same time, I'm a white woman who only has the best interest of these kids at heart, and nobody's taking that into like, is it this like?
No, I totally get it.
You do totally get it.
I totally get it. After, like I said, you gotta learn about it. It's horrifying. It's horrifying what the U.S. government did to them. I mean, their whole goal was to completely get rid of them. Just like genocide. Just
wow.
For whatever fucked up reason we had against them. Like I don't know, but no, I totally get it, and I have done everything that they have asked of me to make them comfortable.
Do they see you as I don't want to say like their own, but like an ally? Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've been approved by the tribe to adopt, so
okay, amazing.
That finally worked out. But believe me, we had our differences.
We
definitely had our differences.
And now the parents of the kids that you foster, I remember you saying almost try to like there have been times where they have issues with you being white. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, they still do.
And I get it. Like I kind of do. Is it right? No, because you can't blame an entire group of people. You know what I mean? But I get the anger and the fear, I guess. It like, you know, even without knowing the history, do you like when it comes to the parents, do you feel that same way or no? Not really. Next question.
I'm gonna say that's a little different. Because the stuff they blame me for has nothing to do with that.
With the history, okay. That makes sense.
You know, it's yeah.
Do you find that a lot of the times parents, like the biological parents, kind of have a resentment towards you? Because I would imagine if I were a parent, right? Like the biological parent of a child, and I got my child taken away for whatever reason. And then here comes this person that I don't know, who's literally taking care of my child better than I could have. I would imagine as somebody who obviously has some sort of issues that I would have resentment. Do you get that a lot? Like where the biological parents?
Yeah.
Too much.
I have. Not too bad.
Okay.
But I would say the ones I have right now, it's probably been the worst.
Okay.
To the point where I couldn't even take them to visits because she wanted it to come to blows.
Oh, wow. Okay. Like homegirl wanted to fight you.
Yeah, we definitely had our issues.
You seem like, and I've always gotten this vibe from you, but you seem like a very calm. Like you have this calmness about you. Have you always been that way? Or is it in this process of being a foster parent and kind of having to be empathetic to kids and to this whole situation, like did that make you a more calm person? Because you just seem like a very like I'm zen. I'm sure it's not always like that, but your overall disposition. I'm sure that you're right. I'm sure there are times where you're like, oh my god.
It's not.
But like
it's definitely not. But
you seem
for
like
the most part,
like you're understanding, like you have a deep understanding.
Yes, that I will give you.
Yeah.
I do get that a lot, that people can talk to me.
Right. You do. You seem very like, I mean, I've always gotten the calm vibe, but you seem very um like you understand the human condition a little bit better. Is that from this experience? Or have you always been that way?
Yeah, no, I think I've always been that way.
You have. Okay. Did this experience as a foster parent what's the word I'm looking for? Like kind of make that understanding like bigger? That's not the word I'm looking for,
Yes,
but
I
like
would definitely say so.
okay. It made
Yeah,
you
because I've experienced things doing this that I never thought I would.
right. Right. Like well like what? Like just kids turning your like, overturning your tables and shit like that?
Well, that and seeing children that are physically abused and hearing their stories, and some of it's pretty horrifying.
Right. Right. And like hearing what they go through.
And seeing them go back home.
That sucks because
I've
there's got to be a
Yeah,
fear.
that's really sucks. You do everything you can, but sometimes it's just not enough, especially if they're going back to a dangerous situation.
Right.
And
What
that's one of the hardest things about being a foster parent, is we don't have rights in that aspect.
you guys don't.
I don't have the right to say that they can't go home,
Right.
or you're not taking them. I don't have that right.
And it's almost that like you're at the mercy of the courts and the law. Um
Yeah, basically.
and the law like have you ever seen, we're going to totally get off on the beaten path here, but
Go.
I feel like it all ties in, like foster care, child protective services,
Mm-hmm.
social worker, like all of this ties in. Did you ever see that documentary, the Gabriel oh my God, what was his name? Gabriel Ramirez? Gabriel, the little boy who was severely abused by his mother. What was his name?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. It was on Netflix, right?
Yes. Did you ever see that? Did you ever watch it?
I could not bring myself to watch it because I knew exactly what it was going to be. It was going
Right.
to be the kid who was being beaten. It was going to be a system that let him down.
Yes.
Um,
Right. That's
and
exactly it.
I feel shit way too deeply. Like, I feel too much. I knew I couldn't watch that.
We watched it.
Did
Um,
you really?
yes, and you literally cry the entire time because this poor kid, man, like was not only was he killed, but leading up to him dying, the abuse that this poor kid
See,
endured.
I'm seriously going to start crying right now
No, like it
because I know what it is.
yeah. And it's something like it's I want to say that it's like kids who are abused aren't ever even close to abused the way that this poor kid was abused, but I can't say that. But you're watching it and you're upset for this little boy. You want to literally go jump through the screen and grab him and keep him safe in your arms. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not only that, but you're angry. You're angry at the parent, the mother, for being the way that she was. But you're angry at the system because essentially there were plenty of reports put in to CPS. Random people, a security guard at social services saw this kid with the marks on him and his hair missing and cigarette burns on his head and stuff like that. And this security guard called and was like, I have an obligation. I have to. Nothing was done for this kid. Nothing was fucking done for this kid. And so it's like, you dealing directly with the system, do you feel like the fucking system is almost skewed against these kids? Like, not against them, but they don't do enough to help these kids?
I've definitely had that feeling with some of the ones that I've taken care of. but one thing I have learned is that, CPS especially, they are just like overrun with
Inundated.
cases, which not an excuse, because there is no excuse for what happened to that little boy.
Right. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm sure you're also right now like thinking of like your own experiences too. I like, are you like replaying certain experiences in your head where
Nope, I don't know. I just feel things too much.
right. You're an empath. You're definitely an empath.
Maybe. Um,
What do you think, like, I get it. They're inundated, um, and they can't, not that they can't, but like it's hard for them to keep track of every single case that comes through. You know what I mean? What the hell, as you, somebody who has experience with dealing with this, the system, what the fuck do you think could be even done with that?
I don't know. I mean, we have sometimes more kids than social workers. I know some of them have between 30 and 60 cases at a time. And they're in charge of going and seeing these kids. They have to see them once a month. They have to come into the home, or right now stand outside and look at these kids to make sure that they're not being mistreated, especially with COVID, because these parents aren't getting a break now.
Right,
It's
right,
like kids 24/7. Which
right.
I love mine to death, so I'm okay with it. But others are kind of like losing their mind. Um, so they have to come out and they have to check them, make sure that the kids are okay. And there's different ways of doing it. So there's foster parenting where you go through the county and you're dealing with like CPS only. And then the way I did it was I had what was called an FFA, and that was an agency.
Okay,
And the purpose of that was if I was accused of anything, they had my back.
got it.
And there's no way you're going to be a foster parent for 8 years and not have accusations brought against you. I've been investigated. I've had my life turned inside out numerous times.
Wow. Is it the kids or the parents? Like who's
Both.
wow, okay.
Both. Sometimes the kids will say something that's not true. So my oldest thought it was funny to make something up, as she said, was on a dare.
Mm.
And it got to CPS.
Oh my
And I
God.
went to pick her up from school and she wasn't coming out. And I'm like, what the fuck is she doing? Like, it's been
Right.
like over an hour. And she's texting me going, oh, I'm doing this really quick. Oh, I'm doing this. She's not coming out. So finally, I pull into the school driveway and I see a CPS vehicle sitting there.
Right.
And I just looked over at her brother and I said, how much you want to bet that's for me? Because I just knew. So I walk into the office and I'm like, I want to see my daughter now. And they're like, we're sorry, we can't let you do that. And I'm like hell you can't.
Right.
Get somebody out here. I know who's here. Tell them to bring their ass out here and tell me what's going on. And so eventually I get shuffled back there and they let me know what was said, which I can't say obviously. And I'm like, okay, that's bullshit. Like, that didn't happen. She was with me at that time. We were right here at this place with so-and-so. It didn't happen.
Right.
And he's like, well, she admitted it was a lie, blah, blah, blah. But, we still have to investigate. So I'm like,
right.
fucking great.
And it's just
So,
at that point a pain in the fucking ass, I'm sure.
oh my God.
Because they got
And it's scary. It's scary because once we left there, we had to go to my son's school. They had to go and they had to talk to him and double check my story. And then I thought we were done with that. And then I get a call on my way home from work and they're like, okay, well, it got sent to like the highest level of abuse or whatever at CPS. And don't be surprised if they show up at your home. I pulled in my driveway and they were already there.
Oh my God.
So they come in my house and they start going through my closets. They're going through everything.
Uh-huh.
They were giving me a bunch of crap because they found like men's clothing or whatever in my closet. And I'm like, well, I used to be married. And well, we're just telling you that looks bad. Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. like,
Like, what do you, right.
um, you know, basically assuming or implying that I had a man here, which I did not. And so then that gets taken back, and then they go to my agency and they're like, we want to see everything you have on her. And they go through like my whole file, and I have to sit here and just wait to be cleared.
Wow.
And it usually takes a few weeks, maybe a month. So it's, I mean, in this aspect, they got in trouble. Like my supervisor, or whatever, at our agency, the guy who owns it, he contacted them because they violated my rights by basically telling me what I had to get rid of, what I wasn't allowed to have in my own home.
Right. Like men's clothing. You can't have men's clothing in your closet.
Right. So I got rid of all that, but I mean, I didn't care. It wasn't mine, but still. It's scary. Even when you're innocent, to have somebody come into your home like that and just invade every aspect of your life
I was
and
gonna
question
say
you.
that's
Because they don't question you friendly. Like they're not treating you like you've
you're a
done
human.
nothing wrong. They're treating you like you've done something.
Do you find that they give, and this is just a general question, not based in any opinion that I may have, but you having your experience, do you find that they give more courtesy to the parents than they do, like the biological parents, than the foster parents, or they kind of treat you both like shit?
No, I've definitely had, it just depends on the freaking
On the
CPS workers.
on the
Some are on your side, some are more for the parents. It depends. It's a hit and miss. The girls that I used to have, that I keep in contact with,
right.
I found out during a visit that one of them had gotten hit with a belt because she had an accident, and she was 3 years old, 4 years old, and I reported that. And I had a CPS worker call me and basically let me know that I pissed that off, that he didn't appreciate what I was saying about him, and that I needed to remember that children lie.
But did you see the marks on a kid?
I did not see any marks on her. She was there for like 3 or 4 days.
Right. But
So
here,
I just heard about it when they came back, because her older sister was laughing about it.
right. And now, from speaking to, because again, I feel like it all ties in sexual abuse and everything like that. When I spoke to Suzanne Izaza, the sexual abuse person,
Yeah.
um, I asked her that question, like, should we be believing the children? And giving merit to what these kids are saying when they say they're sexually abused or they're being physically abused or whatever. And as a professional, she said, yes, we need to be believing the kids. Why? I mean, like, okay, yes, I would imagine in a situation like that, where you have troubled kids coming from troubled environments, maybe fabrication could be happening, but you can't take that sort of claim lightly at all. Doesn't matter where the kid comes from. You know what I mean?
No, especially from like a 3 or 4 year old, because the
Right.
amount of detail that child was able to tell,
Right.
they don't make that up.
Exactly. And
Um,
you have to. I'm sure in the training you're taught, probably, I would assume, to how to deal with that sort of thing. No?
Not exactly.
Oh,
Um,
all
I mean,
right.
you can go through all the training and like that they give you, but a lot of it is hands-on.
Okay.
A lot of it is just dealing with it in the moment. Um, they prepare you for like being investigated. They let you know there's no way it's not going to happen um, at some point or another. Um, but stuff like that, no. I was not prepared for that reaction. And I didn't give a very nice one back.
I don't blame you.
Um, because I'm very protective of my children that are in
Right.
my home, and I don't want anybody hurting them.
Now, here's my question. Okay, so they were under your care, but they still have visitation with their biological parent.
Right. So anytime they come into the home, they usually have visitation at least like once a week.
Okay.
Sometimes it's supervised, sometimes it's unsupervised. It usually starts out as supervised. Even Anna, when she first came to me, she still had visitation with her mom because the goal is always to reunify.
With
Losing my
the
voice.
biological parent.
Right. So, I mean, that's always the goal. The parents usually have to do some kind of parenting classes. If they're on anything, they have to be sober. They have to go to rehab, stuff like that. Even if the parents are in jail, I've had to take children to the jail to visit the parents before.
I don't know how
There's always,
I
they
don't know.
try to maintain that connection.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that all the time, though. Sometimes kids will be
I
better.
don't either.
Okay, all right.
I don't either. So,
I didn't want to
like,
offend, but like, I mean, I guess, yeah, of course you would feel
it's
that way.
just it's just the way things are. No, I think taking kids to a jail is really not a good thing.
Right.
I
And
sure as hell didn't like it.
right. I don't and I don't think I necessarily agree with always having the end result, trying to make the end result be them going back with their biological parents, because I mean, as again, as a lesbian who, like, I see my sister and her wife, and my sister-in-law is the biological mother of my nieces and my nephew. My sister has no biological ties to those kids, but and which means I don't have any biological ties to those kids, but that means absolute dick to me. I would literally put my hand on a fire, like I would die for them. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with this idea that kids are just going to be better off with their biological families just because they're their biological families.
No, and absolutely. There's definitely times when they're not,
Right.
you know. And I mean, whether she's like biologically related to them or not, I mean, she's an amazing mom. I
Exactly.
mean,
Right.
because you always share videos and stuff with them. I mean, those kids are so loved.
Yeah.
Bestie ever. Like,
Thank you.
you don't have to be biologically
The
related to
right.
family.
You exactly, like you, and I'm sure you feel the same way with the kids that you bring into your home. They're
Yep.
your kids. Like you said it before. It doesn't matter that they don't look like you or whatever. They're kids. They're in your home. They're your kids. You're fucking taking care of them like that. And I don't. I mean, look again. Going back to the documentary, which if you ever get the chance to watch, I would watch it, but like at your own risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to get through, though. I can promise you that if you do decide to watch it. But like going back to that scenario, that little boy would have been better away from his biological family had he been taken out of that situation and put into a home, let's say, of somebody of your liking, you know what I mean? Somebody like you, he'd be alive today, possibly, you know? So it's like, I don't know if I don't know.
I don't understand that. I don't understand. I haven't watched it. I don't understand how it could have gotten that bad, that nobody did anything, that nobody reacted. I don't understand that.
It literally, it was even the cops that were called, um, the mother, she was just a mess. I mean, she's in jail now, the mother and the father. The mother and the
Thank God.
boyfriend are, yeah, they're in jail for life now. because unfortunately the kid had to die at their hands, literally at their hands. But there were incidences where the cops were called and the cops came and the mother lied to the police, and basically made it, and this is an 8-year-old kid, not even, this is a young kid, basically made it like he was the troubled one. And the cops scared the kid, basically. Like, they believed the mother. Everybody was just like, right. And they put the kid in the back of a fucking police car and like cuffed him to try and scare him because they truly believed he was this like behavioral troubled kid. Meanwhile, he was being fucking beaten. This kid was going to school with patches of hair missing, cigarette burns on his head. There's pictures of him holding up a sign for Mother's Day, for his mother on Mother's Day, with hair missing, and nobody fucking did anything. Teachers were putting in claims, like there's something going on at the home. Nobody fucking did anything. So it's like, I don't, especially watching something like that, like, kids would be better off where they're safest. It doesn't matter if it's biological or not biological. They just
I
need.
just don't understand that.
Right.
I don't understand that. I don't understand.
Right.
I don't understand how that happened. I don't know.
Right.
Especially with so many people involved.
Exactly. So many.
Like, they just shut their eyes. Like, and police.
Right.
Police are good. They are. They don't understand. Like, they do not understand the rules that we have to live by. I've had to call the police out here when my 2 oldest ones were fighting because, once the person I was married to left,
right,
that created issues in the home, So they would fight and get angry and whatever, and I'd have to have the cops come out here, and the cops would come out, and they would be pissed. They'd be like, especially when they're like seeing that I have like my books out and I'm trying to do schoolwork, and they're like, your fucking mom sitting here trying to better her life and you 2 are just being jerks right now. Like, take your ass to bed. Literally, take your ass to bed.
Yeah.
And my oldest would smart off to them. And they'd be like, she can smack you. And I'd be like, no, I can't. And no, I can't.
Do you feel like
they don't understand that?
The cops don't understand it, right?
They're like, they make it impossible for you to parent. Like, how are you supposed to parent? And I'm like, you figure it out.
Right. Well, that's it. Like, it's almost like the system stacked against you and stacked against the kids.
I don't think you should have to hit a kid though to get their attention.
No, I don't.
So even if I was allowed, I would not want to.
Right. But at the same time, do you feel as though one hand doesn't talk to the other? Almost like, do you feel as though the police forces need more training in regards to situations like this?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of them do. At one point we had, so we had our agency, we had CPS, and then we had, it's like intense family counseling. And I can't think of the Matrix. It was called Matrix. So intense family counseling. Okay. So they have a different way of approaching situations. CPS has a different way of approaching, and the agency has a different way of approaching, and none of them were on the same page.
Right.
So their brother, when he was with me, was violent and acted out a lot. And one of the things that Matrix would have us do is ignore the behavior, but not the child. So you don't acknowledge what he's doing. You just kind of let him be. You just know where he is, but you don't acknowledge it because that feeds into it. Whereas the agency is like, oh no, you have to like hold him and hug him. And I'm like, I'm not trying to get punched.
Right.
Like, no. And then CPS is like, no, you like if he runs or whatever, she's like, no, you pick him up and you throw his ass in the car. And I'm like, okay, but over here, I'm not allowed to put my hands on him.
Right. So it's like, you don't even know. These are all, like,
And I had CPS threatening me. She's like she was literally threatening me, and she's like, so if I'm telling you to do this, then you need to do it. And I'm like, well, they're not allowing this, so I can't. And she's like, well, you listen to me, you don't listen to them.
but who essentially does have the authority at that point? When you have all these hands
The
in
law.
exactly. And what the
And the
fuck?
law says that we don't put our hands on them. And CPS is sitting there telling me I'm wrong.
Right.
And she's like, I think you need to be trained again. I think, well, maybe you need your own class because apparently you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right. Right. So it's like even within
Oh my God.
it's
It
chaos.
got bad. It got so bad. And we were literally in a meeting at one point, and so these people are, the intensive training or whatever, and they're telling our agency, well, this is how we handle it. And so the agency's yelling at them saying, I would never say ignore a child. And this lady's getting pissed off. And then CPS is over here saying, well, you guys are both wrong. This is what you need to do.
Right.
I freaking lost it. Like, I'm sitting there crying because I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't.
Right. It's like no matter what you do.
And she's like, and then she comes at me and she's like, see, I don't think you can handle these kids. Look at this. You're crying right now. And that's when one of the agency people were like, no, this is frustration because we're sitting here fighting and she's stuck in the middle.
Right.
Like, what is she supposed to freaking do?
One hand isn't talking to the other. They're on two totally different pages. How are you supposed to?
Yeah. And that's horrible because you have all these different people telling you how to parent, what to do. And that is a horrible feeling.
Right.
I cannot tell you how many times I cried in the bathroom because if I did something that they didn't like having a bottle at the age of 2. Like, I literally had a social worker come in my house and take the bottle from her and tell me not to give it back.
Is that the hill we really want to fucking die on, though, when there are children that are literally being burned with cigarettes and fucking abused? Like, this is the hill we want to fucking die on?
Right? And I'm like, well, the only dad she ever knew literally just walked out on her. And if this is giving her comfort, I'm okay with it.
Right. Right. There are children at 2 years old with their biological parents. They're still sucking literally on the nipple, on the boobie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to be a detriment to this child's development. Like, that's not the hill you want to fucking die on. You know what I mean?
Right. It can get crazy. But the whole point of that little spiel was that eventually all 3 of those agencies had to sit together in a room and they had to come up with a plan so that never happened again to another foster parent.
Did it change their whole did that situation kind of change the whole system throughout? Okay. Well, it
did make changes because at that point they had to realize these are the therapists and you're not.
Right. So
you can't overstep what they're doing because you're not trained for that.
Exactly.
And then as far as CPS, it's hit and miss. I've had amazing workers, and then I've had some where it's like, why are you in this line of work?
Right. What are you doing?
Like, I don't understand.
Do you think that CPS workers can sometimes get like jaded with the shit that they see, or like they're just not in the right fucking profession? That's just what it is.
I can't imagine how they deal. I mean, the stuff that they have to see. I mean, I get the kids after they're removed. So I don't go to their homes and see what they see. Right. Or get, the calls that they get. And I mean, they have to take that home with them. How can they not?
Right. Right. I wouldn't be able. I think
it's incredibly overwhelming.
It's God's.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to do that job.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I've thought about being a social worker too, but then I'm like, oh man, that would be fucking difficult, It
would, but I think you would be amazing.
Thank you.
I also think you would make an amazing foster parent. I really do.
Thank you.
I think it would take some work because you gotta learn as you go, just like I did. But
I've thought. I mean, I have. The thoughts cross my mind quickly. It's like coming in and out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I definitely want to. Whatever I do with my life, I want to work with kids in some way, whether it's like even taking this and doing like bullying speeches at schools, whatever it is. Like I know I want to help kids, you know. But now before I let you go, um what would you say, what a piece of advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about being a foster parent, thinking about adopting?
Do it. We do. I mean,
Do
we
it.
don't have enough foster parents, and yeah, it's difficult. I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna get your heart broken. I mean, you can't avoid it. But I mean, the good we do far outweighs the bad.
Right.
Sometimes we're the only good memories these kids are gonna have.
Yeah, no, you're right. Wow, I didn't even
And
think of that.
you gotta, you know, I would encourage anybody to do it.
I'm thinking about it. I mean, first I got to find a girlfriend and then a wife. You know what I mean? And like I feel like move out of my mother's house. But once that happens, like I definitely have thought about adoption, fostering. But I gotta say, it is God's work that you're fucking doing, and you're doing an amazing job. Um,
Thank you.
and I just love you as a human being, your energy, and now I love you even more knowing that what you got to go through on a daily basis. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for me
Thank you.
and for kids, for me and for, you know, for the kids.
Well, you're a big part because you definitely make me smile.
Well, that's what I'm here for. To put a
Yes.
Bob Ross wig on and be an idiot in 60 seconds. But thank you.
You
Thank
crack
you
me up.
so much for doing this.
No, thank you. It was nice.